Hello, welcome to this recording of the webinar on managing large data sets in Excel. Well, strictly speaking, this isn't the webinar. The recording of the webinar failed, so I am re-recording it for you guys. Alright, so what we're going to talk about is managing large data sets in Excel. So we're going to go around sorting, finding and replacing. We're going to look at filters, so both auto filters, custom filters and advanced filters. We're going to look at a couple of functions, a couple of database functions, DSUM and DCOUNT. We'll look at how do you go about removing duplicates. So if you've got large amounts of data, what do you do with that? We're going to look at tables. So why are tables so cool and why would you want to use them and insert all of your data into a table? We'll look at data validation. So how can you force data to be of a certain type or within certain ranges or from a pick list within your Excel spreadsheet. And we'll look at subtotals, which is one of my favorite things. And finally, exporting and importing data into Excel, which will include the text importer wizard, which I must say, even though I say so myself, is worth sticking around for. All right, without further ado, let's get going. So I have here a big old list of data. This just comes out of the course booking system. So you'll see here I've got a bunch of fields. I've got fields and columns are pretty much interchangeable in Excel. So when I'm talking about a field, what I'm really talking about is a column. So this column here, employee ID, course name, course date, attended school, and the team that did the training. If I go down to the bottom of my data, which keyboard shortcut queen that I am, I use Control and the down arrow. So Control and the down arrow shows me that there are like 8,000 odd rows of data. And just Control up arrow will take me back up to the top. Now you'll notice that when I did that, you see I've got, it keeps hiding that top row. Wouldn't it be cool if I could always see that top row? Well, guess what? That is completely and utterly possible. I'm going to highlight row number 2. I'm going to go to my View menu and I'm going to look at Freeze Panes. Now, freeze panes, isn't that an interesting way of putting it? It used to be impossible to find in help because if you try and look for make the row at the top stay there, you don't really get it. But it's called freeze panes. It's here on the View menu. It used to be on the Window menu, which was really impossible to find. Anyway, click on this drop down here and I'm going to say freeze top row. Okay, so you see that it's frozen that top row there. You can also freeze the first column. And you can freeze as well. If I wanted to say I highlighted row 5 and did that freezing, it would freeze all of those top 4 rows. Okay, so essentially it freezes what's above where you've selected. So there you go, a little bonus tip there, that's freeze panes. But let's talk about sorting. So I can sort by any of these columns at all. So I can come in here, for example, and I can on my data menu. Okay, so we'll be looking at data menu a lot today. Got this sort and filter. So I can just say, yep, sort that A to Z. No, sort it Z to A. So you can see we can sort that about. If I do that in the dates column, you'll see that it will do it in ascending and descending order. I can do that. If I do it in numbers, yep, it's going to do that too. It can be quite clever as well. So you will find this sorting if you've got months listed out. So if you've got January, February, March, April, it will sort those in that order in January, February, March, April. It doesn't sort them alphabetically. So it is a little bit smart. You can also set up your own sort orders if you wanted to. So let's say you had some information that was coming from different areas and you wanted those areas to always show in the right order. You can actually set up your own sort order as well. All right, but let's just look at how you sort multiples. So if I wanted to sort by one and then another, let's say I wanted to sort by which team was doing the training and then by the course name, I can come in here to this sort and that opens up my sort dialog box. Okay, so from here I want to sort by the column. It's just pick the first one by default, but that's not the one I wanted. I just say pick training. And then sort on the values and I'll sort that A to Z. Then if I want to sort by something else, I just click add level. Okay, so sort by that, then sort by course name and A to Z. And I can just keep adding levels, as many as, or not quite as many as I want, but I can add lots and lots of them. So then we'll sort by course date. Okay, and we'll go, no, we'll go oldest to newest, why not? and then I'll say OK. So that's how you sort by multiple columns at once. So it's just in that sort dialog box. You'll see here, that's sorting top to bottom, left to right, so we can also do that, and we can make it case sensitive if we want to too. All right, I am just going to say OK to that. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bonus that I didn't show you in the webinar, which is how do you do those custom lists. So if I come in here and I say the sort, we've got these sort values here, and you'll see, so if I add another level, let's say that I wanted to sort by the attended or what have you. I've got here, you see on this drop down it says custom list. So this brings me into my custom list. So you can see, as I told you, you've got Jan, February, March, and you've got January, February, so it's got Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday. If you want to anything else, you can just add them in here. So let's say this was going to be small, large, medium, something like that. And I can say add, and now that is on my custom list, and that will be available throughout using this worksheet and throughout using Excel, she says. I'm pretty sure custom lists are available in all of yours. So it's going to say OK. Now if I say OK, so that's not going to work because that isn't a thing. So I'm going to hit cancel. What you can also do, though, because I just typed that, if you don't want to type it into that box, you can use a list that you've already created. So let's say that I have one over here. I'll tell you what, let me just grab training and I'll make a copy of that, and I'll come over here and go paste that into there. I'm going to just remove duplicates. I will show you this again later. I'm just going to remove duplicates from that column. It has headings. I say OK. I say OK. So at the moment that's in alphabetical order, but let's say that I didn't want it to be. I wanted it to be because my team is the most important. So let's put sort of training at the top, and let's put the faculty of professions, we'll move them down to there, but I might go, oh look, that's technology services admin, we should move them up to there, and so whatever order this happens to be in. Okay, so now I can grab that. Okay, so I can just grab that there. I go to File, Options, Advanced. Okay, so File, Options, Advanced. This is where they hide all the good stuff. And I'm going to go all the way down to General. Let's see if I can see it. Oh, did I just go past it? General, here it is. Okay, so under General, you'll see I've got this Create Lists for using all in sorts and fill sequences. Edit Custom Lists. So I now click on Edit Custom Lists, and you'll see it's picked up that for me, and I'll say that is import, sorry, and that's in there. I can still edit it in here if I want to, but I've imported that in, and so I say OK, so and OK, and that is now should be, if I come in here and I say I want to sort, and this time when I sort by training, I can sort by that custom list. Alright, so that was a little bit extra. We didn't get to that in the webinar this morning. So that's just for you people who are watching me on YouTube. Alright, so that's sorting. We can also use find and replace. Okay, so while I've got all sorts of things mixed up in here, let's say that I want to find a particular school. Okay, so I want to find the School of Economics, say. So I can go in here, I can use Control F. Remember, all of you who have attended one of the webinars before will know I love my keyboard shortcuts. So Control F is for finding, and so I want to find the School of Economics. Oops. Okay. I can say find next, find next, and it's just going to move through finding that for me. Or I can click on Find All. If I click on Find All, it then shows me where they all are. Okay, shows me which sheet they're on as well. If I wanted to, I could actually search within. Sorry, I just clicked on my options there, which gives me more stuff. So I could actually search within the whole workbook and click Find All. And then if there are any on any other sheets, probably not in this case, but it would display those as well. And I can just click on here to go straight to them. Okay, all right. Now another thing that I could do here is I could actually do a replace. So I could do the find and replace. you'll see here I've got the School of Economics. I might not want to change that with anything, but what I might want to do is format it. So I might want School of Economics to just pop out every time, you know, so it really pops, I can see it. So I can come in here and say I want to format that. Alright, so I'm just going to go into, I'll do a border. This is all your normal cell formatting things that you get here. So doing number types and all that sort of thing, but we'll do a fill. In this case, we'll go for like a nice light greeny color. Yeah, that'll do. And I say OK. And then I can just say replace all. So it's 35 replacements. So now you can see that that's highlighted. Oh God, if I can find somewhere else where it's on. But it just means it pops out. You see, as we scroll past, it just pops out everywhere we can see the School of Economics. Okay. All right. That's just gonna. No, I don't need to undo it. I can leave that alone. One of the other things that's in that find and replace option, I just want to demonstrate to you. I'm going to go to where am I going to go? I'm going to go to filtering. So you see this information here, I've got this status and I've got some 2s and some 4s and oh, there's a 7. And there is no such thing as a status 7, let's say, in this imaginary company that I work in. And that should really say 5. So I want to go in and do a replace because somebody's made a bit of a mess. And I want to make sure that anywhere it's a 7, it's supposed to say 5. I want to change that. Okay, so again, I'm going to say Control F. Or Control H should work. Yeah, so Control H will take you straight to replace. Control F for find, Control G for go to, and Control H for replace. That works in all Microsoft Office products. All right, I'm just going to clear the replace format because I don't want to replace any format. And this time I want to find the number 7. All right, and I'm going to find it just within this particular sheet. Okay, now if you see, if I say find all, can you see how it's finding them in dates as well? So it's just finding anywhere where it sees a 7. So if I now go to replace that with a 5, it's going to replace it everywhere in all of these different places. Whoops, as you can see it says 10 cells found, so all of those 10 cells it would replace the 5 with a 7, sorry, with a 5, which is not what I want it to do. However, if I click on match entire cell contents and then say find all, it should do. What's going on? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm in this particular row. I'm in here, and let's just try that again. So find 7 and find next. There we go. It's just Excel having a moment. It happens. So I'm just going to hit now replace all. And it's just made those 2 replacements. So you can see it hasn't gone through and replaced the one on that date or the one on that date. So remember that quite often they hide the good stuff under anything that says advanced or more options. That's where you can find the really good stuff. Okay, so that is find and replace, including find and replacing those formats. So I didn't show you that, but you can also find any formats that you want and replace them with formats or replace the contents of the text. So very much like in Word, you've got those advanced find features. All right, let's talk about auto filtering now. I'm going to go back to my course booking system data and we're going to have a look at filtering. So you'll see again on my data tab in sort and filter, I've got filter, and when I put filter on, it puts these little blobs. And can you see it's got these little filters in here now? So I've got these little filters. Yeah. And what they do essentially is they let me filter my data. So they let me hide certain rows or only show certain rows, excuse me, depending on what I pick. So for example, I could come in here and I could say, so we can see here there is all of the training teams. So I'm going to say no, don't select them all. That selects all or toggles them all off. I just want to see what it is that PCE are offering, for example. So I can go OK, and now I just see the PCE courses. Notice that there's blue over the side here, so all these rows are now blue. If you see blue rows, it means that you've filtered your data. So if you're looking at data and you're thinking something's missing, it's because check and see whether there's blue, because that means that it's been filtered. You'll also see here that we've got that little funnel appears now on that little arrow drop down. So that shows me that the filter is actually on this training column here. Now I can also do this on multiples. So I can do it on multiple columns at once. So I can come into the course name. There's a whole bunch of them there. So let's say that I'm just not interested in these ones at the top here, but I'm interested in the rest of them. So okay, so I've now got a filter on two different things. Okay, so that's how we do some filtering. If I want to clear these, I could clear them one by one. I can click on here and I can say clear filter from training, but because I've got it on multiples, that will just clear off that one. Let me prove it to you. Clear from training, and it puts on there. If I put a filter back on here, okay, I can now hit clear all, and that's going to clear everything. The reason it's still only showing me PCE is because they were the ones who trained those courses. So it was the only one that was going to show because I'd already filtered by the course, and that was courses that were only run by PCE. But hopefully you get the idea. So this clear button here will clear it off all the filters that you have on. So these are text filters that I'm showing you at the moment. There are also other kind of filters. So you'll notice if I come and try and filter by number, I've got all the numbers, but then I've also got this thing called number filters. So number filters gives me these things like equals, does not equal, greater than or equal to, and so on. You've also there got something called the top 10, and you've got above average, below average, and so on. You've also got a custom filter, which I'll come back to in a moment. So if we come and have a look at the course dates, you'll see that you now get date filters. So we've got, you can do things like what's next week, last week, what happened last quarter, this year, last year, year to date, all dates in the period of, you've got quarters or you've got months there, and so on. So it depends on the data, what options it gives you for your filtering. So again, we've got text filters here. So here you've got equals, does not equals, begins with, ends with, contains, does not contain, and so on. Okay. Let me show you how you can quickly before I go and show you those custom filters, I just come in here and say, let's say, rather than wanting to go, let's say I wanted to see all of the courses with HDR somewhere in the title. So I could come down and scroll and look for them all, or I can just go into the search and I can say HDR, and it will only show me the ones that have got HDR in the title. So if I now say, okay, it's filtered for your HDR thesis in Word, and what else was there? Was something about, managing your stress, being an HDR, and there's industry engagement with HDRs. So it's got all of those courses there. All right, so now let's have a look at a custom filter. So I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to clear that filter, and I'm going to come in and do a text filter, custom filter. Okay, so we want here, rather than equals, you see I have these other things I can use as qualifiers. So I've got equals, does not equal, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, begins with, does not begin with, ends with, does not end with, contains, and does not contain. I must say my favourites tend to be contains and does not contain. They're my default go-to favourites because then I don't have to know precisely what the data is. I just know that somewhere in there that word will appear. So I'm going to say research. So I can have that, and then I can add an and or an or. So this time I'm going to go with and. So and means this search, this filter, this course must contain the word research somewhere in it, and it must also contain the word for. If I used or, it would be saying it can contain research or it can contain for. So that's going to give me more results. Using an and is going to give me less results. I'm just going to say OK to that. All right. So there we go. I've got grammar, and I've got pronunciation and language. So I've got a few different results there. So that's a custom filter. The next thing I want to show you is advanced filters. I'm going to go to another sheet for this one. I'm going to go to filtering. So the advanced filter, that custom filter, you may have noticed there was only two things you could do. You could only add search for an and or an or with two restrictions, but you can do that with more things if you use an advanced filter. Okay, and you can do it essentially as well. What you're doing is you're doing it across multiple fields, so across multiple columns. So I'm going to come in here and yes, please ignore what this data actually is. I realise that you guys will not be looking at sales of sporting goods. Unlikely that well, I don't know, but it's unlikely that you're going to be doing your research into that. But this, what I'm showing you is just principles. So this should work whatever your data is. And you can see this is a fairly small data set, but it will work with much larger data sets as well. Alright, so to do an advanced filter, the first thing that I need to do is create myself a little bit of space. So I'm going to put my advanced filter and my criteria for my advanced filter at the top of this sheet. So I just want to create some space. I'm going to just grab these. I've got 4 things here, 4 lines there. I'm going to right click on them and say insert. Because I had 4 lines selected, it's inserted 4 lines for me. So that's just another quick tip for you. Then I'm going to grab the titles of all of my columns, so what all my data fields are called. I'm going to Control C to copy that, which gets my lovely marching ants. I'm going to go into 1A and Control V to paste. Then going to press Escape just to get rid of those ants. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to do an AND. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to know down in this all of this information here, I want to see all of the people who are in sales and their status is a 2. Okay, so that's what I want to do. I've got sales and status of 2. I'm going to come into my filter section. I've got this button here, it says advanced. So I'm going to say in my advanced, filter the list in place, or I can copy this list once it's filtered into another location. I'm just going to filter it in place at the moment so you can see what I'm doing. Here I've got my list range. So this is my list range here, which means basically what's all the data that you're actually filtering. So here's the data that I'm filtering. It would be handy if you've got these big kind of fields, is to name them. You'll see when we talk about tables, it names them automatically for you. And later on when we look at data validation, I will show you how to name something, and hopefully you'll see why that would be useful. But naming is a thing in and of itself. We talk more about that when we talk about in the functions session, formulas and functions session. Anyway, so here's my range there. I've now want my criteria range. So where have I put my criteria? So I'm just going to use my little picker to come over here and say this is it just here. And I'm going to say OK. So there you go. What I've done there is I've created a filter. An advanced filter where I'm filtering on 2 columns at the same time. So I've got sales and status. And I can change that right now and say, well, actually, who's on status 4? It will not update automatically, but when I click on advanced filter, it's still got the same list. It's still got the criteria range. I just say OK. All right. And again, to get rid of it, I say clear. So that was doing an AND. I can also do an OR. So let's say I want to find out who is in administration or who has a salary of more than or equal to 50,000. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So notice I've put them on different rows. So I'm going to go into advanced. Oops, yes, okay. Here we go. There we are. Calm yourself. Here we go. So I've got my criteria. My list range is still the same. My criteria range has changed though, because I now want to go to F3. You can see here I've got F3. So I could come in and I could just go and grab it again, or just using my little button here, or I can actually just change that. It goes from A1 to F3 and say OK. So there you go. I can now see all of the people who are either in administration or they earn more than $50,000. Okay. So it's an AND when you put it on the same, and it's an OR when you put it on different lines. Just make sure that actually worked. Yep, excellent. Cool. All right. Time to talk about database functions. Let me just clear that first. All right, so looking at a couple of the database functions we can use. Specifically, we're going to look at DSUM and DCOUNT. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to query the data and say, hey, based on this criteria I've given you, Excel, please could you add up this other thing for me? So in this case, what I'm going to say is, hey, Excel, could you tell me how much money I'm paying in salaries in a particular department? Okay, all right. So I'm just going to get rid of that and delete that. Okay. I'm going to just come over here, just put my formula in here so it's out of the way of everything else. And I'm going to say equals DSUM, and see, look, Excel wants to help me. And that's exactly what I want. I then open my brackets and it's saying to me, where's your database? What's the field? And where are your criteria? So where is my database? Well, here's my database. So that's my database just there. Okay. So what is the field that you want me to sum? And I'm going to say, well, Excel, I want you to sum the salary field for me. Okay. And then I just go comma, and it's saying now, so what are the criteria? Why, what's the, what are you trying to achieve here? What are the criteria? Which ones do you want me to sum? You don't want me to sum everything. You want me to sum just things based on the criteria. So I grab my title and I go along my titles, and then you see that field I've got below, so the administration as well. So I do that. I then close the brackets and I hit enter. And it has decided not to give me any result at all. Let me just pause for a moment and figure out what that's going on. All right, it was just being Excel, because when I came in and changed it to sales, it then updated that amount. So you can see it's updated that amount. And if I go back now and type in, administration, it did it for me. Oh, you gotta love Excel. All right, so that is the DSUM. So just remember, when we come and look at this formula, the formula is, what's your database? So where's the data? What's the field? So what is it you're actually trying to add up? So sum is always adding. So it's going to do a sum for us. And what are the criteria? Okay. Now I'm going to do a count. Okay. So I'm going to do a DCOUNT. So equals DCOUNT. You see where it is, DCOUNT. Okay, so what's my database? So again, this is my database. Can you see why it would have been handy if I'd named this range? I could just type the name in there rather than having to drag it. So particularly if you've got lots and lots of data, definitely name your ranges. So I'm going to go put in a comma, and then we move on to the field. So what is the thing you want to field? Well, you want me to count. So this time I'm going to count the status. So what I want to do is find out how many people of a particular status there are in the organization. Okay, so I'm going to go put a comma in, and then what are your criteria? So I'm just going to say, this is my criteria just here. I'm going to close my bracket and hit enter. Okay, so I can say, how many people are there? I'm going to get rid of administration there. Can you see how it keeps changing? So every time I make any kind of changes in here, it changes both of these because this is my criteria. So if I come in here and I say 5, how many people have I got at the top? How many people have I got at the bottom? I've got none. Excellent. Or maybe they're the ones at the top. I'm not sure. Okay. So that is using your database functions. That's DSUM and DCOUNT. You'll find that there's lots of help on using functions, just if you use the function wizard. So the function wizard in here will give you lots of detail. So this explains to you what DSUM is, and you can also say, hey, I want some help on that function, and it will go and search, and it is specific to that particular function. And it gives lots of remarks, it gives examples, and it even, I think, allows you, a lot of these ones say, hey, if you want to have a go, why don't you just copy this data into Excel and do what we tell you and just have a play with it. So some really great help on that. But we're not here to talk about functions today, are we? No, Lucy, we're not. Okay, so next thing I want to show you is removing duplicates, which you saw briefly earlier. I'm going to come here and have a look. Again, it's not a huge amount of data here, but we do see that we do have a few bits and bobs. All right, so from my data tools, again, I'm still on my data menu. I'm going to come here, I'm going to say remove duplicates. You'll see here that I've got Alice is in there a couple of times. What else have I got? I think I've got Amy Baker a couple of times. I've got Henry Davis a couple of times. So I've got a couple of repeats. Now on a small data set like this, you could just do that manually. A larger data set, no thank you very much. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say remove the duplicates. And again, it's saying which columns or which of your fields do you want me to look at? We look at all of them. Essentially, I'm saying what are exact duplicates of each other. So only remove things that are an exact duplicate all the way along the row, okay, by including all of the columns. So I'm going to say OK. You'll notice it says my data has headers, which it does indeed. So I'm going to say OK. And it says, here you go, 5 duplicates were found and removed, 13 unique values remain. And say OK to that. Now we may notice that Alice is still here. So there's something about Alice that is still the same. If we come and have a look at her salary, 35,000, 35,025. Can you see that? There's a little 25 cents just left there that wasn't on the other one. Okay, so if we just undo and go back, let me show you. So this is why sometimes it can be useful to actually skip certain columns. If you know that kind of thing might have happened, that when you're importing data, sometimes it has it may be depending on where you're getting that data from, that sometimes it has decimal places and sometimes it doesn't, or something like that. So what I can do is I can say remove duplicates, and this time please just ignore the salary column. Okay, so ignore that salary column for me, and I say OK, and this time it's removed 6 duplicates and found 12 unique. So you can see that now I only have one Alice. All right. Now, you do want to be a little bit careful. If you're playing with removing duplicates for the first time, please do it on a copy of your data, not your actual only copy of your data. Always make sure you're doing it on a copy. And let me just show you what can happen. So you'll see here we've got 2 bakers. So let's say if I got a little bit over enthusiastic with saying, yeah, let's unselect all. I just want to remove duplicates from the last name. And I say OK, I've now lost one of the bakers. So let that be a cautionary tale to you. I didn't necessarily mean to do that, so just do be a bit careful about discluding columns. I would include them all to start with, and then start to disclude them, but doing some data validation as you go. So be a little bit careful with remove duplicates, but hey, it's a pretty cool little tool. So, tables. So I've got a bunch of stuff here, and tables can be a really great way to manage your data. So now if I'm working and putting a lot of data together, I do always put them into a table. It just means that there's nothing super special about a table. There's nothing that I can't do with a table. Sorry, there's nothing that I can't do without it being a table. I just find tables are much easier. They're much more user-friendly. And so on. I will show you why. There's a few reasons why. So first thing to do is to turn this into a table. So I go to my insert menu, because I'm going to insert something, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a table. So there we go. Now you'll see here that it has picked up automatically, because I was within my data, it's picked up automatically what the data is. By the way, this is a really good reason, one of the many really good reasons, not to leave gaps in your data. So I know sometimes people leave gaps in their data because they want to make them look pretty. Please leave your data alone. If you want to make it look pretty, then take it outside to do that. You can do lots of things on other sheets. So query the data, do things like pivot tables and so on. But a lot of that stuff, a lot of the really good stuff in Excel will not work properly if you have gaps in your data. So either blank columns or blank rows. Please avoid putting blank rows or blank columns within your data set. It really will make your life way more hard if you do that. There are other ways that you can put gaps between, virtual gaps between your data if you like, and hopefully you're seeing a few of those. All right. Anyway, so it knew that, and it also knew that my table has headers. So I'm just going to say OK. And that now turns it into a table. So you'll see that it's done some stuff, like it's formatted it, it's automatically put all that auto filter stuff on it for me. I can automatically come and sort this as well, in the same way I could do with raw data, but it's just a couple of less ticks. It's also named this table as well. So if I come in here, you'll see that I now have a table, so it's called table 2, so it's named that data range for me, which will make it a lot easier to use in formulas. and functions. It's also actually named all of these columns, all of these areas for me too. Okay. Other things I can do with it is I can change what it looks like. So I can make it a green color, make it a little bit orange. I can say actually I don't like that. Sorry, what I just clicked on was this little drop down here. Okay, so this little drop down here just means that I can expand this menu and I can see other items. So I've got here, I could go really intense like that if I wanted, or I could go a little bit more subtle. Yeah, I quite like that one. I think we'll go there. Well, I like green. There we go. We'll go with that one. So I've got this here. So you see it's automatically put banding in it for me as well. Now banding just means that your spreadsheet is easier to read. But I've got here, you see it's here that it tells me that's banded rows, so I can turn that off if I want to. If I'd rather, I can have banded columns. It depends on the nature of your data, which would be better. I can also do things like say, hey, there is a first column, and that just changes that formatting. Or I can say there is a last column. So if you've got something like a totals column at the end or something like that. And I can put in a total row, so I can automatically have a total row as well. Okay. Yep. All right. If I want to, I can still do that as a sum. So there you go, because I put in that total row, it's allowing me to do things such as, I can say, hey, what's the average, what's the count, and so on. So it's got some other ones. I can put in, I can create my own functions as well, but it's already done that for me. Another reason that tables are cool is if I want to add in an extra column. Let's say that everybody this year is going to get a 15% bonus on their sales because we've had a bumper year. So all I need to do is I come in over here and I can say equals, and then I can say the sales. Okay, so you can see it's got at sales there, so it understands that it's in a table, it's given it a special thing. And I'm going to say times and then 0.15. So everybody gets a 15% bonus. And I hit enter. Did you see that? So as soon as I put that function in there, what it's done is it's created a new column and it has auto-filled that formula down, and now I can just come in and give this a name. Okay. If I wanted to add another column that's about something else, so I might say, oh, what would this be? I don't know. If I wanted to come in here and say birthday, again, you see it's created a new column for me. Okay. And another reason I like tables is it's really good for data entry. So if I say I come here and I go tab, 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 you see it just carries on. If I'm somewhere else and I hit tab, it just keeps going. Whereas when I'm in a table, because it's defined within a table, when I hit tab, when I get to the end of the table, it takes me back to that first row again, that first column. And when I'm on my last row, so when I'm down here and I hit tab, and then I hit tab again, it actually puts in a new row. Okay, so it's a great way for if you're doing data entry as well, as if it's formatted as a table, you'll know that you're only entering data into the table itself. Okay, and I think that's everything I wanted to say about tables. So tables are pretty cool. I like tables. Let's talk about data validation next. So data validation is about insisting that in certain cells within your spreadsheet or within certain fields, so in certain columns, there is only certain types of data that can be put in there. So it may be that if you've got a date field, that you want to insist that people put a date into a date field. Or if it's a number field that's used for calculations, that you then insist that people put a number in there. This can be really handy because if somebody in your date field, if somebody's put something that's not a date, and then you try and pivot that data or you use formulas, you're going to get error messages. And Excel's going to get pretty unhappy. And also probably you're pretty unhappy because all of a sudden your data is not valid. So how do we do data validation? Well, what we do is we come to the Data tab. So on the Data tab, oh, by the way, I'm demonstrating this on a table. You can do data validation anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a table. It's just that happens to be the sheet that I'm on at the moment. Okay, so here we go. We've got our data validation. So I can click on data validation, and you'll see in here I get all of these settings. So am I going to allow any value? Am I going to allow a whole number? And also I can then, if I want to, make it a minimum or a maximum, make it between, or I can make it not between, or make it equal to an exact value, or less than or equal to, or any of these other things. So as you change the one at the top, you'll get different options down the bottom here. So I can set minimum and maximums. I don't have to. If I leave those blank, there will be no minimum and maximum. I've got whole numbers, it's a decimal, it's a list. I'll come back to lists. It's a date, it is a time, it's a text length, or it is something that is custom. Okay, and I can add in a formula or so on in there. So this just means that if I come in here and say this one needs to be a whole number, it's going to force me to do that. So it's got to be between 1 and 10,000, and I say OK. So if I now type in here hello, I get an error message. Okay, just saying that the value entered is not valid. Okay, so I can say cancel, and then I would need to put a number in. I'm just going to go to data validation, and I'm going to say data validation, and here click clear all. So if you want to clear data validation out of a cell, that's how you do it. You come here and you click clear all and say OK, and now I should be able to type hello in there. Wonderful. Okay. Now it may be that in this one here I want to make sure that they pick the region. So I want to make sure that somebody always picks the region, or it may be something like the product. I don't want to be able to type in anything they want, because that is going to mess up my my reports. Okay, that's going to mess everything up if they just type. If they do a typo, you know, and they get the E and the A the wrong way around in East or something like that, it will actually mess things up for me. So I want to make them pick something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these. I'm just going to copy them over here, and I'm going to remove my duplicates because I just want to see a list of what all of those unique values are. So I'm just going to say remove duplicates from that. My data in this case does not have headers. I'm going to say OK. All right. So this is what I've got. I've got northeast, southwest, central, southeast, and northwest. That doesn't seem to me like particularly good order to have them in. So let me just move things around. We'll have northeast, northwest, central, southeast, southwest. Lovely. So these are the ones I want someone to pick from. So I'm now going to grab all of these, and I'm going to say, you'll see, oh, it's giving me some little options there. Quick analysis. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into data validation, and I'm going to say, I want you to pick from a list. Okay. So what is the source of that list? Well, the source of that list is just here. Okay. I'm going to say OK. All right, so now you'll see I get a little pick, and I have to pick from that list. If I try to just type something in, it won't let me. Okay, so it makes me pick from a list. Okay. The thing is, I might not want this on this same spreadsheet. Okay, you may want to put your lists somewhere else. So I'm talking the advanced class now, but I like to keep my things, I like to keep my worksheets, particularly if I'm giving them to other people to look at, I like to keep them neat and tidy. So I tend to have a sheet somewhere, which I also, by the way, hide, but we'll talk about that another day, is I can come in here, I'm going to just X, let's get rid of that, and come here, and I'm going to just put that into this cell here. Oh, I'm an idiot. Sorry, I just pressed the wrong button. Oops. I'm going to come into, where was I? Here I was. Okay, so I've got these. Control C to copy, go to my sheet, and Control V to paste, not Control C again, Lucy. All right, and I'm just going to put region at the top of that, just so that I know what's going on with it. I'm going to rename this sheet into lists, so I know what's here. Okay, I'm going to grab those, not the region, just I want the text I want to be part of that drop-down list, and I'm going to come up here to my name box, and I'm just going to give it a name by going, it's as simple, creating a named range is as simple as coming up, selecting what you want, going to that name box, typing it in, no spaces. Okay, it doesn't let you have spaces in a table name, in a range name, sorry. And then I hit enter. Very importantly, I need to hit enter, and I now have a named range called region. So going back to my table, going back to my data validation. So let me now just delete that out of there. So we just delete that. And I'm going to come back to my data validation, grab all of these. I'm going to go data validation. And I'm going to go for a list. And the source this time, okay, so I want that source. I'm going to press F3. So F3, just the single key, those F keys on the top of your keyboard, you may have wondered what they're for. This allows me to paste names. So this works in formulas, it works in this list thing, it works in all sorts of places. I just go region, say OK. As you can see, I could, if I knew the exact name, I could type it in. You could just say equals region if you can remember what everything's called. I just like to use the paste one in case I have any typos. What I'm also going to do here is add my input message. So I'm going to call this region. I'm going to say, please pick from the list. Okay, and then I've got an error or an alert, so I can have the stop, warning, or information. Okay, so I'm going to call this you are an idiot and say please do as you are told. Okay, so you'll see now that when I'm here, so when I'm clicking around, it comes up and it says region, please pick from the list. Okay, and then I can pick from the list. If I decide not to pick from the list, I get the error message. Okay. All right. Now, obviously, I wouldn't put that in my actual spreadsheet. I would never call anybody an idiot because that's incredibly disrespectful. But it just shows you that you can actually put those, you can make those error messages whatever you want. So anything that's going to be useful, it's going to help people fill in your data. Okay, I think the data validation is really important if you've got other people putting data into your spreadsheet. It's fine if it's all just you, but the other people doing it, and then also putting in those little tips for them just so that they know what it is that you're after. So putting in that tip and then also putting in an error message just so that's useful, that just lets them know what it is that you want them to do. Okay. All right. The other thing that, and also, sorry, I was just going to say, I do them as well. I do data validation to remind myself too. So if I've not been back to a spreadsheet for 6 months, I may forget what it was I wanted or why it was I wanted that. Doing the data validation means I'll always do the right thing, and giving myself little prompts just helps with that too. There is another way that you can help people to fill in the form. Filling your data is to fill in a form. So I've got this on my quick access toolbar, so it's just this little button up here. If I click on that, it just opens up a form, and that allows me to just add things in. So from here, I can do finds and previews and previous and next, and look at criteria and that sort of thing. But really what I wanted to show you is there's a new button here. So here's the new record. You'll notice that bonus is grayed out. I'm going to give you a moment just to think about why that might be. Bonus is grayed out because it's a calculated field. Remember, we put a formula in there. We put equals sales times 0.15, so it's 15% of sales is somebody's bonus. Because it's calculated, you cannot fill it in. All right. By the way, that is on my quick access toolbar. So in order to add that to your quick access toolbar, you've got the little tiny drop down button here. This drop down here at the end of your quick access toolbar that says customize your quick access toolbar. So here I've got a few things, and I've got more commands. So if I go into more commands, I can just say all commands, and from here I can just go and find it. It will be here somewhere. There it is, form, and then you click on the add button and it'll add it to your quick access toolbar. Just for anyone who's interested, the other things I have in here are my camera tool. I've got pivot table, and I've got grouping or outlining. Okay, talking of which, the next thing I want to show you is subtotals. Okay, we could have a quick look at outlines, why not? All right, so I've got some data here, and I want to create a quick report which I can give to other people. I would actually do this with subtotaling, which is what I'm going to show you next, but let me just show you how I would do it here. I would grab these 3 lines here, and I would say, I want to group these together. Please group them. And it's going to say to me, do you want to group the rows or the columns? In this case, it's the rows. I'm going to say OK. So now I get this little minus button here. and I can minus that so I can just see the totals. Yeah, so I can hit the plus button to see everything or the minus button to see the totals. So I can repeat that on these ones. Unfortunately, this is one of those ones where you can't select multiple, so I can't select that and then hit my control key and select that and then do it. I am just going to get an error message. It's not going to like that. By the way, it's worth reading error message when they come up because they do normally tell you what you've done wrong. So it does here. You cannot perform with multiple selections. Select a single range and click the command again. So there you go. It's told me what I've done wrong. So let's just go group, and say oh, and this final one here. Now you will notice that I can group columns as well, so why don't we have a go at doing that? I'm just going to grab these three here. I'm going to say group column, okay, and April, May, June, which make up quarter 2. I'm going to group columns, okay. And then why don't we just grab all of that so we can have just the totals. Group columns. You will notice there is also an auto outline. So auto outline will be able to, it won't do it with this because I've got way too many blank rows in there. So it's not going to like that. But auto outline would essentially have done what I've just done manually, would have done that for me. So why is this useful? You'll see here I've now got this 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2. So if I click on 1 at the top here, you see it just goes straight to my totals. And if I click 1 here, I can now see, so I could give this as a report to somebody that they can drill down into. So they can see that headline information, but if they want to see more, they can say, well, I want to see level 2. Oh, that's what happened in quarter 1 and quarter 2. Hang on, I want to explore quarter 2 a little bit more. So let's explore what happened in quarter 2. Or let's see what District 3, you know, what happened in April. Yeah, we've got here April, May, June. It seems a bit low, District 3, so let's just have a look at a bit more detail of that. So I can just keep drilling down. If I want to drill down all the way on everything, I can just go the 2, 3. So it's just these outline buttons here, and it just, as I say, it allows you to create quickly and easily create reports that allow people to drill down, which you can also do with subtotals, is what I'm going to show you next. I'm going to go into my subtotal here. So what I'd like to do with this data is I'd like to have a look. Remember earlier we used the DSUM to look at how much salary we were paying to each department. Well, here I could do that actually just by using a subtotal, so I could see them all at once. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use this button again on my data tab, subtotal. So with the subtotal, it's saying at each change in last name. No, that's not what I want. It's by department. Oh, and please note, you see how I've actually sorted by department? So to use subtotal, you actually need to sort by what it is you're subtotaling by. I'll just say that again. Because I want to subtotal by department, I want to know how much salary is being paid to each department. The first thing I need to do is sort my data by department. Because then I can say add each change in department. So every time you come across a row that has a new department in it, I want you to use the function sum. So I want you to add everything up. That is in the raise field, but I also want you to do the salary field. Okay, so every time Excel finds a new row in this department column, it's going to use the sum function. So sum just means add everything up in the salary column and the raise column. Okay, so I'm just going to say OK to that, and there we go. I can now see what totals I've got. I've got a grand total. I've got a total for each department too. So if I go on to 2, that shows me per department. I love subtotals. This makes my life so easy. All right, but you can see why it's important how you structure your data. You structure your data well, and all of these tools will work for you. And I'm going to show you how to do a multiple subtotal. It's pretty straightforward, but there is one magic thing you need to do first. So in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtotal first by the district. So that outline, the one that I did here, when I went and made these kind of reports here, I'm going to kind of do a similar sort of thing, but using subtotals. So I'm going to subtotal by the area, then by the product, then by the year. So I'm going to have 3 levels of subtotals. First of all, I want to know how District 1 did. Then I want to know how District 1 did in each of the different products. Then I want to know how District 1 did in biking in the different years, 2006 and 2007. So I have sorted by all of that. So just to remind you, I'm going to go to Data, Sort. So I want to sort by, the first thing I want is area. Then I want to sort by the actual product. Then I want to sort by the year. So we've done that. Now I'm going to go into my subtotal. So I'm going to say add each change in area. Yes, that's what I want. Use the function sum. Yes. To add up sales. Yes, that's what I want. Excellent. That's my first level done. So there we go. I can now see all my districts. But I want to do it for product as well. So I'm going to go subtotal. Add each change in, this time product. Use sum to add up sales. Correct. But here's the magic. Here's the magic. This replace current subtotals. That's the magic bit. I need to untick that. So untick replace current subtotals and say OK. And that leaves my district subtotals there. Okay. Otherwise, I would lose those district subtotals. So you can see now I've got a biking total, fitness total, outdoor total, and there I've still got my district 1 total. Okay. And let's just, for completeness, do it on my years as well. So add each change in year, use the sum for sales, that's what I want, and that is unticked. Excellent it is. I say OK. And there we go. I have now got, if I go up to level 1, we can see I've got a grand total. I can then see what the district totals are. I can expand that and just see what happens in district 1 for each of these, or I can go down to the level of the year as well. So I can collapse that. Yep. Or I can go all the way down and see all of the data. So it's a way of creating a nice, quick, easy report that people can drill down into as far as they want, or as little as they want. Okay, and that's how you do subtotals. All right, the final thing to show you then is importing and exporting data to into other products, so into and out of Excel. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how do we actually save this data out of an Excel format. You'll notice that at the moment it is a .xlsx. Okay, so that is the latest version of Excel formats that is supported by Microsoft. It's actually a .xml format for those of you who are technically minded. The previous version was called a .xls, and you may still have some of those kicking about, a .xls. The thing is that now .xls itself came in lots of different versions, and you can't now open something that was created in Excel 97. If it's been saved in the Excel 97 .xls format, you cannot open that in 2013. You have to go via another version. So you have to open it in a previous version of Excel, resave it, and then open it. So you have to be very careful about the longevity of the data format that you have chosen. So I would advise you is maybe when you get to the end of your research is to create a future-proof version of your data. And that essentially is a .csv or a .txt file. It's very easy to save them as that. You just go File, Save As, and I'll just go into here. And you'll notice here I've got my Save As, whoops, sorry. There we go, I've got my Save As type. If I click on that Save As type drop down, you'll see there are lots here. So you've got your standard XLS, you've got your 97-2003 workbook type, and so on. But what we really want to look at is this .txt. So text tab delimited. So text tab delimited means what it's going to do, it's going to save all of your data, and every row is going to be on its own row in this text file, and each column is going to be separated by a tab. So what you've got in A1 will be, it will put in there, and then there will be a tab, and then there'll be the data that you had in A2, and then there'll be a tab, and then there'll be the data you had in A3, and then there'll be a tab and data you have in A4. So that's what that means, and it's a .txt file. .txt files can be read by pretty much anything. So Notepad can read them, Word can read them. It just means that there's lots of different things that can read a .txt. In this case, I'm going to actually choose a CSV, which is a comma delimited instead of tab delimited. So that's the only difference. A CSV is a comma delimited, a comma separated variable. Okay, and Excel recognizes those and will open them automatically for you. So if I go to save it as that, and I'll just say save. And okay, so what it's saying is it doesn't necessarily support everything that I want, so I can just save them one by one. Okay, and it's saying some of the features in my workbook will be lost. Do I want to keep using that format? Yes, because things like the subtotaling doesn't work in a CSV. You know, the tables don't work in a CSV. Some of my formulas, they won't work in a CSV, but my raw data will be safe. Okay. All right, so how do I go about, so that's exporting. How do I import data? I'm just going to hit Control N to open up a new workbook. Yeah, it's having a bit of struggle with that. Let's just try that again. Okay, I've got my blank spreadsheet here. Okay. If I come along and look at data, again, my data tab, you see here I've got my get external data. So I can pull data in from an Access database, I can pull it in from the web, I can pull it in from a text file, so that's from that .txt file I was talking about, and from other sources. So there's all sorts of things you can get here. So OData, XML, you've got some stuff that you can actually buy in the marketplace, so some feeds of a lot of data, you've got SQL servers, all sorts of different things, so pretty much anything. By the way, if you do regularly use an external source of data, you can actually create a connection, and what that means is that when that data refreshes and you reopen your spreadsheet, it can go and look for that refreshed data, so you can refresh it without having to recreate your data sheet. I'm not going to get into that today, but you can go have a look at that on the internet. So that's called, as you see, you've got existing connections. So you can create a connection between an external data source that updates regularly and your spreadsheet so that it also gets to update regularly. All right, but for now we got this from text. We can also just open a .txt or a .csv file just by double clicking it. Let me just show you that. I should have one here. Let me just find it. Here we go. So I've got a CSV file here called US dates. If I just go to open that, okay, we've got lots of data here. So it's a .csv, but look, it's open in Excel without any problem. Oh, but is it really without any problem? So we'll see here that because this has actually come from the US, this data, this CSV file, so the dates are in American format, which has confused Excel because my Excel is based on Australian format dates. So you can see here, some of it copes with, some of them it just doesn't know what they are, just treats them as numbers. That's going to really mess me about when I'm trying to analyze this data. So I don't actually want to do that. Instead, what I want to do is from here, I can just say that I want to open it. Sorry, let me just cancel out of that. Yeah, so I want to do this from text. I wanted to go to my desktop, my other file, and this is my US dates CV, and I'm going to say import. You see how it says import, not open? So this is going to open up my text import wizard. If you've ever used this function here called text to columns, which is awesome, then you will recognize this. So here we go, we've got, it says it's delimited rather than fixed width. That's what I want. I'm going to say next. It says, is it delimited by a tab? No, it's not. Remember that text files, generally speaking, are, but this one is done by a comma. So I'm going to click on comma. And you see how now it's found all of these different columns for us. Okay, I'm going to say next. And now it's asking me, is there any particular format you want to put these in? So what I'm going to say, or is there any particular format they're currently in? So let's see, we've got two date fields here. I'm going to grab this date field here and say that's a date field. But no, it's not currently day, month, year. What it is month, day, year. Okay. Then I'm just going to say finish. You can just go into the advanced and look at other formats as well, but I just want to show you this is possible. And I'm going to put it into my existing workbook and I say OK. So you can see how this time it has coped perfectly well with those dates. The one where I didn't do that, it hasn't. So that's how you go about importing, doing that import of CSV. You can just double click it to open it and that will probably work for you, but if it doesn't, you can use that text import wizard. So that brings me to the end of what it is that I wanted to talk to you about today. Let me just pull that. Okay. So we've had a look at a bunch of different stuff. We looked at sorting and finding and replacing. We looked at auto filters, advanced filters, some database functions, removing duplicates, tables, data validations, outlines and subtotals, and finally exporting and importing data. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any ideas about anything else you'd like to see in these webinars, please contact us at IT it.training@adelaide.edu.au. That is it.training@adelaide.edu.au. Okay, there you go. We would love to hear what we would like to know about in these future webinars. Thank you very much. That's Lucy out.